Coach, let's go back a bit. Let's talk about this new challenge, this new adventure in your life. How did this all come about? Was it the Whitecaps, Bobby Lenarduzzi and their staff that outreached to you to give you this new challenge, or were you interested in a new challenge in your life?
Well, I actually have a history with the Whitecaps, having coached the women's team many, many years ago, so I've always stayed in touch with the club, and obviously coaching at SFU in Vancouver would always interact with the coaches and support staff. So they brought me aboard the club in a part-time capacity last year to do some scouting for them. Did that and really got to know Carl Robinson and his technical staff really, really well. And then really didn't discuss this position at all. I wasn't really looking for a change. I was enjoying my time at SFU, and then just through our interaction, the position, we started talking about it and discussed it in more detail, and then we decided it was the right decision for myself and for the club.
Coach, you had a successful tenure at Simon Fraser University, a very, very important university here in Canada. Talk a little bit about your time there before we get on to talking about your game against TFC2 coming up.
Yeah, I had a great 7 seasons there. When I came back to Canada to go work with SFU, they were still in the NAI. So we made the Final Four in NAI there, and then I was with them through their transition into the NCAA. And as a lot of people know, they're the only Canadian university that competes down south in the NCAA. And while we're there, we had the first undefeated season in the history of the program, and also made the NCAA Final Four twice. So it was a great experience. Playing against all sorts of teams. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Would love to have won an NCAA National Championship. We were close twice, but enjoyed my time there, and it was right for me personally too to make the change. So I'm glad I am where I am now today. Now
let's talk about the Whitecaps and getting ready for the game against TFC2. Obviously, a tough setback. The last game had some ups and downs. Talk a little bit about it. Talk about what you want to see differently from your squad getting ready to play TFC2.
To be honest, I think our squad is very, very similar to TFC2. We're both using this to obviously give our young players an opportunity to show that they can do it at the professional ranks, get minutes for all the players in the club system. So we kind of expected it would be a little bit up and down, and that's how we started our season, and so have TFC. But it's been great. It's a good experience for the young guys to come and showcase themselves and see what they can do. We know when we play TFC, I think any Whitecaps TFC game is going to be an absolute battle. There's a lot of club pride and a lot of provincial pride at stake too. So we're excited to host them here in Vancouver.
What's the style of play you want to see from your squad, Coach? Is it an up and down, north-south style? Do you want control in the midfield? What type of style do you want instituted with this squad? Is there an identity that you want from them?
Yeah, we're playing the same way as our first team plays. I think that makes sense in a club's football system to all play the same way. So the players that come through the youth ranks and then through the USL are all ready, and it's a little bit easier for them to step into the first team. Having said that, we have to adjust a little bit, obviously, for our opposition and also adjust for our league. Our average age in most of our games has been roughly 21, 22 years old. So it's a young group, and when you're playing in some of the older teams in the USL, they may be a little bit more physical than us. So we have to deal with that physical element. But we like to attack. We like to possess the ball, deal with the different elements that the teams that we play against throw at us, and go out and compete for 90 minutes.
Now, I noticed you mentioned there is some USL squads that are more mature, more up there in years. And I saw that firsthand against the Red Bulls squad going up against TFC, where it was lopsided, but they had a lot of guys that have a ton of MLS experience under their belt. And you're going to see, as you said, a lot of these USL squads that have a lot of veteran players either getting back into shape or coming through rehab or just maybe a downswing in their career. I mean, this has got to be a challenge for some of the youngsters on your squad, like, a Jackson, a Farmer, a Mackenzie Pridham. Talk about how they have themselves mentally prepared, knowing that they're going to play guys that are 5, 6, 7 years older than them with a lot of experience.
To be honest, I think with our group, we're not even worrying about age. We've got a lot of teenagers in our group, and we just approach every game as it is. And the guys are aware they're playing against older players that have a bit more experience than them, but they shouldn't be intimidated. They got to go in all these games with confidence and play as if they've been playing in the league for many, many years. I think that's the best way they're going to achieve their individual success they're looking for, and it's going to hopefully help us win a few games. I think the second a bunch of young guys start being intimidated and or playing against 26, 27, 28-year-old guys that have been in either the MLS or in the USL for seasons, I think they're going to get themselves into a negative position. So we're approaching it as if it doesn't matter what your age is. We're going to go in and compete in every game, and we obviously hope our young guys will learn from this experience and help them along their own personal pathways.
Now, Coach, it's got to be great working with Carl Robinson. I know Carl, he is a top-notch man, not only on the pitch as a coach, but as a human being. His time here in Toronto was a special time, and he's a great guy. How many times a week or times during the day do you and Carl speak on certain players? Does he come out and watch without players knowing? What's the feedback when he needs a player to be brought up? Does he ask you who is hot, who right now is firing on all cylinders, or are you recommending someone that he might not have thought of?
I think there's a lot of interaction between Carl and myself going both ways. He'll show up at our training sessions. We're in constant contact, either by phone, email, text, whatever the case may be. And I work with a lot of his assistant coaches very, very closely to discuss the particular players that are in their group that may come down and get some minutes with us, and then our younger players that we're trying to see if they can step up and earn themselves MLS contracts at some stage. So, no, Carl's a great guy. He's a great guy to work with. I share the same sort of philosophy as him, which makes us a very, very working relationship. But no, we're in constant contact with him and his assistant coaches just to make sure we're all on the same page and updating them with how our guys are doing.
How important is this USL League, not only for the Whitecaps, but for the Impact and for TFC to get their Canadian young, talented players experience that they desperately need, that they wouldn't have had years past, where, you know, the Whitecaps, TFC, and Impact would have never thought to put in a USL squad? How important is this for their development?
Oh, it's huge. I think it's huge for the clubs, and I think it's huge for Canada as a soccer country. There's obviously a quota system in place where we have to start a certain number of Canadians. That's not even a challenge for us at all. We don't even think about it because we have a lot of Canadians in our USL group. So it's a great opportunity for them to step in, whether the players are coming from our own academy system, if we're bringing them as draft picks, or we're bringing them in from some of the other Canadian universities. No, it's been quite easy from that perspective. It's great to give this many Canadians an opportunity. I think it's been missing for a while. It's good for the individual players. It's great for the clubs to try to develop as many players from their own communities, and hopefully this will lead to success for the clubs and obviously for all of our national teams. Yeah,
and I think a lot of times the Whitecaps take a lot of shots that I don't think they deserve. I know Bobby Lenarduzzi, we go back 25 years, back in the old Canadian Soccer League when he was coaching the 86ers and then Canada. And I think he takes a lot of shots that he shouldn't be taking about the Canadian player on the senior team. And I look at one Canadian player who comes from these parts in Niagara Falls, and that's Russell T-Bird having an outstanding first part of the season. I mean, how do you address that when people say, well, Coach, you're not giving enough time to the Canadian player? Because I look at your roster, there's a lot of great Canadian talent, as you said, and I think it's important for your squad to have that so people can come and watch and cheer these youngsters who might one day be playing for Canada, let alone the Whitecaps.
No, I think it's great, and I think for our Canadian players on a USL roster, to have Russell and Sam Adekubi getting regular minutes in our first team in MLS is great. They can see that Sam and Russell are doing well. They all want to do the same thing, and they're paving a pathway not only for themselves but for other young Canadian players. So I think it's great. I think it's unrealistic to expect our first team to be covered in Canadians across the starting 11, but the more Canadians we can push up, the better, and I think having this USL team in place is going to help us do that.
Coach, just before we let you go, we really appreciate your time. I can't let you go without talking to some of the young men out there that might be getting ready to head off to an NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 school and living their dream, and a lot of young men have worked hard to get to where they're at. What are some of the things that they need to be prepared for on and off the field as they get ready to set off on this journey that is so important in their life, in studies, but also on the field, because they have a dream possibly to play in MLS? Give us some understanding what they should be looking out for in the first few months going down south with their team.
I think the biggest thing they need to learn, they have to learn it very, very quickly, is the discipline it takes to be a successful student athlete. Obviously, they're going to schools where there's full-time coaches, full-time support staff, scholarships are at stake, so they're expected to go and perform on the field, and they'll have to do everything they need to on the field, but also off the field in terms of strength and conditioning programs, all that type of stuff. But then also they have a full-time job as students. So it's not easy, but it'll teach you a lot of time management skills that you'll have with you for the rest of your life. I cannot recommend highly enough the student-athlete approach. It's a great option for players to develop, but obviously if they don't make it as professional players, at least they have a fantastic education to fall back on. So, they need to apply themselves, make the most of the opportunity. We're looking at them, obviously, to go play in the NCAA. You giving yourself an opportunity to potentially be drafted, and we're looking at draft players into our MLS team from the draft every single year.
And as we finish up, what's the end game here for Coach Koch? Do you one day would like to get into MLS and coaching? Would you like to go to Europe and be a head coach with a top-notch club? What's your goal here?
I get asked that a lot, to be honest, and really my motto in life, I think the older I get, I'm focusing more on the now. There's a plan for the future, but you go one season at a time. We're thoroughly enjoying being part of the group that we have here, so we want to make sure we're successful this year and see if we can push as many guys up to the first team. Hopefully win a lot of games in the USL, and then we'll assess things after the season and look forward after that. But I think I'd be jumping the gun, saying, "Oh, I want to go and be in the Premier League or Serie A or something like that." So enjoy where you are, make the most of it, and see what doors open up as you go along.